Just Some Podcast Media.
The thoughts and opinions expressed on Buried Pleasures are those of the host and the guest and do not represent any views of any organizations that we may volunteer for or be employed by. Listeners should be aware that there may, most likely, be profanity and discussions on topics that may require a little discretion. You have been warned.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Buried Pleasures. This is a long-awaited episode, as I've been told, since I took a month off to move across country and to become the spectacular person that I am. And today, my guest is Tom from Just Some Podcast for Advanced Practitioners. We haven't had a chance to talk in a long time. Tom, how are you?
I am doing fantastic, and I'm glad to see you're doing great as well.
I am. I'm doing okay. I am going to say, though, I am kind of sad for all you listeners out there. My good friend Tom had a terrible ocular accident earlier in the month of July. I was so hoping that he would come out of this with a pirate patch so that we could, have some solidarity between the two shows. But, I guess as fortune goes, he was very fortunate and he didn't lose his eye or his vision. So
However, I still do wear an eye patch from time to time, and I would be happy to do it for your show. So just let me know at any time.
There's a guy who wants that whole Dudoir calendar thing that you could totally do a little, like some cheeky shorts and an eye patch.
Yeah, I'll take it under consideration, but I'm still going to go with a no. I do love that the fact that I survived without permanent scarring or loss of an eyeball somehow makes your show worse. Like, that's my favorite part.
I'm just saying, everybody.
It would have been really cool had you lost that eye, but since you decided to save it.
Right, since you can actually see out of your eye and whatever. Hey, by the way, you became a 4th of July statistic.
I did. I would like to point out for everybody listening, though, I'm the guy that was yelling about safety. It wasn't even my fault. It was from another yard. Like, it had nothing to do with me. I wasn't doing anything, not safe with fireworks, and yet it still found a way. It literally, it's the winning the $1 billion lottery ticket shot. I was like, what are the chances?
Yeah, right. Like, why didn't you just win that $800 million or whatever?
Well, yeah,
it was?
that's what they're going to take home. It was 1.03 billion, I think.
It's disgusting.
Oh my goodness, it is disgusting that I didn't win it.
Yeah, same. I definitely played. I won $8 off of my lotto tickets. Thank you.
Unfortunately for me, I did not realize I had not purchased tickets until 33 minutes after the drawing. And I was like, okay. Well,
hey, you don't win if you don't play. That's the rules.
Well, I'm trying to find a way around that loophole. It really seems unfair regulation that I can't win without playing, but we'll keep working on that. But someday, I just know I would. And my friend sent me some TikToks about it, but I already knew I would do some really ignorant shit if I won $1 billion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
God. Oh boy. We're talking some dumb stuff is going to happen.
I would definitely travel. That's what I would do. I would travel and buy silly things that I don't need.
I guess the very first, I would obviously do all that stuff too. I was thinking I could do whatever I want. I got $800 million now. I can do whatever I want. I was thinking just cover my body in butter and then put a clear plastic suit on and walk outside, see what happens. Like, who's going to stop me? Nobody. I have $800 million.
I can't even. So
just let that image roll
I just
head.
wish that Ben were here in this moment, the other half of the Just Some Podcast for Advanced Practitioners. Ben, if you're listening, if we could get some saran wrap and some butter, I have a project.
It's gonna be a lot of country crock butter tubs going to be used up here pretty soon.
We'll use Carrie's Gold for you.
I am worth $800 million. We can use that expensive butter. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Let's talk about why I asked you to come on the show. So Tom and I have been talking about topics. And one of the topics that I am very passionate about in the moment is trauma, obviously. I talk a lot about PTSD. I talk a lot about traumas I do some very fun and informational talks with Rachel in the OC, who has Bad Redhead Media, who's a wonderful speaker about childhood traumas, childhood sexual abuse, and also, sexual abuse in the real world as adults. And she and I talked about what happens. How do you come back to being able to be a normal functioning person? And by normal, none of us are normal, right? We all have our own definition of normal. But what is the most important is understanding that whatever your normal is that you can get back to that after you've had a traumatic event. Now, whether that has been something that you experienced as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, and in any shape or form, whether it be a sexual abuse scenario, and a verbal abuse, a physical abuse of any type, whatever you're perceiving is your trauma. That's what we're talking about today. And how do you start feeling like somebody who wants to be loved or touched or hugged or held or any of those things after those things occur? Now, for you, Tom, I know we've talked about traumas in the past. You just had your eye shot out and everything.
Yeah, not that type of trauma. Yeah,
we're over that right now.
Yeah, not that trauma.
But in a relationship, when you have both been raised by different people, you have both been, you've experienced things unlike each other. We'd all like to think that we have similar experiences. And if you grow up in an area and you end up dating somebody you went to high school with, chances are these people were raised similarly to you. Now, if you marry somebody from another country, another state, another whatever, maybe there might be more marked differences. It just depends on how we approach these subjects, on how we can really grasp how difficult it may be for somebody who has had a wonderful upbringing, wonderful childhood, never had a problem a day in their life, and then all of a sudden be confronted with a partner who has had the exact opposite. But, they always say opposites attract, right? Like that's a total thing. So, Tom, what are your thoughts about when you've been in relationships? And this we don't have to take the turn to traumatic versus non-traumatic, but would you say you had a pretty normal upbringing, pretty functional family, or were you as dysfunctional as everybody else's family?
Well, like you said, I think everybody's dysfunctional to some extent. All right. Like things that I would consider normal. I'm sure there are like, eating pizza as a family every Friday night. I'm sure there are some vegan out there going, oh, so your family forced you, and I don't mean that bad. I'm just saying to them, that's the trauma,
Right.
So for me, no, I know there's obvious trauma. I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just trying to say, like, for me, it was pretty normal. I was listening to what you were talking about and I was like, yeah, no, I know my wife did not have the best childhood, and I certainly didn't have a normal one. My father was in the military, so I went to 3 high schools. That's what I'm saying is,
right.
In 4 years, I went to 3 schools. Like, I don't have roots, which I know it may be traumatic to some people, but the lack of roots is completely normal to me. So to me, it's that's not a trauma in any way. I think the perspective, though, of traveling all the time mitigates some of the things you talked about for me. Like my wife grew up in a completely different, she grew up in one area her entire life, one small town. She knew everybody knew her. It was that type of thing. I mean, we're talking like less than 10,000 person, area. So
I get it.
I'm sure you. I'm just saying for
I
people,
totally get that.
But there's people that are listening to this right now. The smallest town they've ever been in was 60,000 people. They can't imagine every day waking up and seeing the same people and knowing them, their brothers, their sisters, their moms, their dad, their cousins. And that's how it is for her. Versus me, every time someone's like, oh, you live here now? Well, you must know Jack so-and-so. I'm like, nope, don't know Jack. Never heard of him. I don't know. But I can see exactly what you're talking about. And I 100% agree because the things I've seen moving all the time and being in foreign countries and stuff, I will tell you right now, no, nobody does everything the same. So I guess the roundabout, very long way is saying I have, a different perspective than people that maybe grew up in one town their whole life. And my view of normal, I think I have a pretty relatively normal view of normal. Like, I think I could judge what 85% of people find appropriate or not. Though I also know 15% of my stuff is probably stuff that other people, like I said, butter suits. People out there are going, what is going on? And I don't really want one. I just found it funny, but I know there are other people that like they would never think of that. So I'm like, okay, that's my quirky, funny. I know
your
I have
butter
that.
suit is your quirky.
Well,
thing.
no, I'm just saying like I have that. I know I have that 15-20% of my personality. That's just, I think nature did that on purpose. I think 40-80% of all of us match up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have that 20% to keep the cogwheels moving, because if you don't, the machine breaks down. So that's bad. So evolution and or by design, whatever process you prefer, design that 20% so the wheels move. Yeah, because that's bad if it stops.
We don't want our wheels stopping here at Berry Pleasures.
Yeah, the whole of humanity stops producing and then we die off as a species. Yeah, I think evolution would be not fond of that. So
no, definitely not. So how is it that through thousands of years of traumatic events have we kept going as human beings? How has that happened?
Okay, well, because I think that there's very different. And honestly, I'm going to say this, and I think there's very different perspectives for both male and female, which are traditionally the sexual partners. And again, I'm just saying traditionally. I'm talking from my experience. The view of a guy on a trauma versus the view of a girl, and it depends on the trauma. Right. Now, the trauma that has affected me in my sexual health was not sexual in any way, but I have female friends. I work with, I'm a male nurse practitioner. I work predominantly with females in the healthcare workforce, and I have heard some of the stories, and I can't imagine their point of view. Like, I would never expect a female nurse to understand what I'm going through. I try and be empathetic, but I'm also a fairly large guy, and so when I hear shocking sexual traumatic stories, I cannot literally put myself in that headspace because there's no thought process where I could imagine being in that spot.
Right. Got you. Because you've never had to be the weaker person.
Yeah. I'm only 5'9", but I tip in at about 300 pounds, and I've wrestled in jujitsu for the majority of my life. I'm just saying there's not a lot of people that walk up to me and I go, oh, he's going to make me do something I don't want. Like that that is not a thought that comes in my head. And I'm not a badass. Some of the things that maybe go through my head on a normal basis, I'm sure she's not thinking. My fears and insecurities are sure different. So I think it's really hard to get at perspective because there's so many.
Right.
Because guys can be the victim as well as the perpetrator of sexual trauma. So it's hard for me, though, to understand that. But I mean, I have my own things that I am sure that I have told people, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean that in a dear, kind way. Like they're like, oh, you see them shaking their head, but I'm like, oh, it's not clicking. Right. You can't possibly understand why this means so much to me. And I feel bad again for my wife, because sometimes she'll be talking about something that I know is very obvious and non-sexual, but I'm just saying very obviously this is important to her. And I'm like, I don't understand at all why making sure our child has the right type of hot chocolate is that big a deal. But to her at that moment, it is the only thing in the world that matters. And I can't figure out, why that happens. So
I would like to compare this conversation to how in certain circles it's sometimes difficult when you're talking about, let's say, when you're talking about sexuality, when you're talking about gender, when you're talking about race. We all have these hard stops. And I can say this, but I know I can't say that.
Correct.
Yeah. I have to, I have to tiptoe around this part, but this I can just be blatant about. And I think a lot of people are doing that these days, obviously. We all are trying to be respectful of one another's opinions and perspectives, but sometimes we fall short because we've not been educated on the subject, or it's just something we've never heard of before, right? That can happen. So in talking about traumas, again, finding the root terminology is the necessity.
Yeah. And honestly, this is one of those areas where I'm trying to get better at, and root terminology. And just like you were talking about, properly identifying gender and sex, I'll be honest, and it's not an excuse. It just, my brain has trouble latching on to all. I respect any person, and I don't want to ever come across as I don't. But in my head, it's still very binary, and I don't care which one you want to be. I don't. I just care that you tell me which one so I can accurately do it. And then I think the best one I've heard is Patton Oswalt, comedian, talk about this. He goes, look, I am the biggest person to trying to support an ally, but Jesus Christ, give me a break. If I make one mistake, don't chew my head off because I said the wrong gender term for that day.
Right.
So I don't want anybody that hears this conversation to think I'm being flippant or observing or, uncaring of what's going on. I 100% do. And I think accurate root terminology as far as both the patient, the victim, and the person providing the treatment are all extremely important. As a matter of fact, I think it is the base of the entire diagnosis and treatment.
Correct.
However, going through all this, I'm not trying to offend anybody. So if somebody finds themselves offended, I don't want to be that guy because I don't want to walk on eggshells. And that's that. I guess that's one thing at my age. I've just decided I know I'm not trying to be a jerk and I'm going to talk the way I talk. And if someone gets offended, then we can have a conversation about their being offended. But I'm not going to literally try and remap my entire brain to speak and then somehow make it worse.
Right.
Let me just get out the message and then you can interpret if you like that message and then we can talk about the details, but that's really where it is. So I guess the long way short of saying all the stuff that you asked me in the beginning is I find that trauma is incredibly specific, and without knowing the details, it's kind of hard to tell the person what we're going to talk about because like I said, you being a female may be the victim of a physical trauma, but that's never happened to me.
Right.
So I think that's the spot with any sort of trauma in sexual health is knowing exactly what you're dealing with and being accurate, not to be clinical. Like I don't want people to feel cold about what the person is telling them, but you need to know exactly what you're getting into to make that transition. And I think for me, that's the worst part because I don't know how to convey that message because again, my trauma was psychological. And so I use this description, not the best, but sometimes I even use this to talk to my patients. And like, sometimes the diagnosis is like trying to staple Jell-O to a wall. Like I know what the Jell-O is and I need to get it there. It is not that simple though. All right. It is not. Oh, you know what the problem is. You know what the treatment is. No, like sometimes there are things in between, and to try and explain to somebody, because here's the thing for me, for mental health trauma and sexual is it's not the same every day. Today, you could tell me, well, okay, let's talk about what most guys have a problem with is like penis size, right? So you could tell me today, hey, Tom, you're great. I'd be like, wow, she thinks I'm great. But tomorrow, if you say I'm great and I'm in a bad mood, or you said something earlier that makes me think that maybe today you're just going to tell me things I want to hear. If you say that exact same phrase, I'm going to go, she's a lying bitch. She's just saying that because she doesn't want to be with me. And then you go into this mental health spiral. And then later on, she's like, hey, let's have sex. And you literally physically can't perform anymore because for 9 hours, you've told yourself, that this person really hates you. And so that is not the same as, and you sent me a really great article. And the reason I brought this up is, you sent me that great article about things you can do to make it safer for your partner to have sex with them. And I was like, but none of this would matter to me. I don't give a fuck if you leave the light on. And I'm not saying this because I would be angry in my head. So I don't want people to think I'm angry at the victim. I'm just saying as the angry victim in the case, I would be like, I don't fucking care if the light's on. I don't fucking care if they're off. You could say whatever you want. My life is ruined and she would have never done anything wrong. And so that's what I'm saying is for me, it's incredibly hard to pinpoint or tell you what's wrong when I know that tomorrow it could be a little different. And so I know there are other people out there that likely have something similar to that. And I think my biggest downfall has been communication. And I think that's probably everybody. But, by far and large for myself, because I don't know how to say it and I'm too embarrassed to say it every day. Like, I know she's never going to hear this. Like my wife, like I love her, and she has all of our podcasts downloaded on her phone so that we, but she doesn't listen to us. So she,
my husband doesn't listen to my show either.
Yeah, she hears me talk enough. She doesn't need to hear me, on her drive to work.
Dave tells me all the time. He's like, "Yeah, I don't listen to you. I'll listen to it when you're dead, when I'll miss you." That's what he says.
Dave, what a good move. I like that.
Yeah, that's my Dave. What you were saying speaks to volumes to me, because what I see happening in my own life is that I have a wonderful sex life. Blah, blah, blah. Everything's wonderful. But I'm going to tell you, in the last couple months since, I'll say since November, since my daughter-in-law passed away, my life has taken on a different turn. It's been very difficult for myself because it's my son's wife, and I love that girl. It was also very difficult for my husband, who's never lost anybody that close to them before, And so it's been this weird and unusual dynamic between the two of us in the last few months, where I think it's because I lost my dad whenever I was younger and watched the struggle that my parents had when my dad was sick. He died from melanoma when I was 20. And so I think seeing all of this hurt and all of this grief has made me just be so disconnected to my own body, because I don't want to feel this. So I just want to I either please sedate me or give me something that makes me feel good. I'm not a drinker anymore, so I can't even do that. So food, again, is my go-to whenever I'm stressed out. And I've gained 10 pounds since I've moved back to Ohio. I'm super mad about it. But I've basically been trying. That's my way of dealing with my inability. I don't want to sit around and cry all day.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
So I know what makes me feel good. I'll tell you. Ice cream.
Yeah. And chicken wings. Wings are, chicken wings and pizza are my, but so I guess my question is then, is that healthy? And how long do you let it go before it's not? Again, as the person, I'm not the therapist in this. So for those that are listening, I don't know shit about sex therapy. That's why I talk to her. But I do know some stuff about, the human condition and suffering from some mental trauma, I guess. So let's talk about that. So the reason I'm saying that is because I think it is healthy for some disassociation to a point.
Right.
So for sexual health, where is that point? Like when, because I'll be honest, mine affects me like daily now, but I don't mean that bad. I just mean every day. You said it's been going on for months. Mine has been going on for, 2005. So that's what I'm saying is I have a very different perspective. How long, when you have that disassociation, do you let it go?
I think that anytime that you have a question about something, like if you're doubting your ability, like you were just saying, this has been happening since 2005. What day in 2005 did you say, all right, Tom?
June 18th.
Okay. And how long was it before you talked to your partner about this?
Well, so here's the weird part. Well, no. I obviously I have. I mean, she's been around me for 12 years, so that's 12 Junes. Yeah, so that's 12 Junes. And also the shitty part about PTSD is it's not like it's that day only. Right. It's not like 364 other days a year I get to go out. I'm fucking great, And I don't want to sound like a victim mentality. Like it's not like every day I wake up going, "Oh God," it's not like that. But it does
still there every day.
Yeah, it's kind of like after you put like blue food coloring in a bowl of water. It doesn't matter how many times you add water, you can still see a tint. Like it sits in there, it's maybe minor, but it's there. I feel like mental health trauma, at least, and again, I'm going back to that because that's what I know, is I think that's the thing though. It's touched everything. If you break my shin bone, it makes me walk funny, but eventually the bone mends and I go back to a regular gait. There's no coming back from this, at least not for me. Or not in a way that the scar is not easily recognizable. So I don't know. I've had this conversation with her.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with everybody. And again, it's not like I come out one day and go, "Hey, this happened to me, so I know I'm mentally fucked up." It's more like something happens and they go, "Why did you just do that?" And I'm like, well, sometimes this is what happens. And so we have that. And I've never had anybody go, "Oh my God, that's too much. I can't handle this." At the same time, I don't know because I don't. Again, every day is a little different, so I don't know how to have that conversation because there wasn't a sentinel event
Gotcha.
other than previous to our relationship.
My question to you would be, how have you proceeded over all these years? Have you written down lists of things? Have you just made a mental note of the things that are bothering you? What have you done?
Totally avoided it for 11 years. So, yeah, I mean, actually not even 11, up until probably a year and a half ago. I just was like, oh, I knew it was a problem. And I did the traditional. I just boxed it.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. Like, whenever
nurses are really good at that too.
When you're having that sad feeling, I just push it down.
Push it down.
Just push it down.
Yeah.
And then I'll deal with it later. But then the box, you just don't open the box. You lie to the box.
It becomes Pandora's box.
Yes.
Once you push it down.
Pandora can keep it. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
And Pandora will kick your ass, is what Pandora will do.
Well, eventually. Well, it's because I didn't want any treatment. I didn't want to talk about it. Well, let me rephrase that. I did want to talk about it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what to do. Even though I worked as a healthcare provider with other healthcare providers, I couldn't bring myself to say, here's my issue. I'm not saying that was healthy. I'm saying I got through it, not well. But I mean, I got through it. I don't know. I've never taken the time. I know things that do trigger certain, but again, the traumatic event and the sexual health, I think, are linked, but I don't know, like, just because if I saw something really bad that day that triggered my mental health issues, if somebody was physically attracted to me, I think I could still sexually perform. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's when my brain takes that same logic from the traumatic event and then applies it to a sexual health incident. And again, I'm going to say something that happens regularly inside my household, and I'm sure it happens regularly inside a lot of other people's houses. We'll just do it later, and that's fine because I'm a grown ass adult. I understand we can't just do it 24 hours a day. I mean, I get that, but
yes, you can.
You know what? I guess I'm going to have to amend my motion and resubmit it to her and say, no, I was told that we can't have sex 24 hours a day. But no, I mean, your kid's finally out of the house, spending the night somewhere else. You're alone, and then they're like, oh, let's do it later. Well, first of all, right there, that'll set a bad tone in my head because it's like, wait, you always tell me the reason we can't be intimate is because we're never alone. We're alone. And now you're telling me later. And I'll tell you right now, that's a trigger. Because then by the time we get to later, if there's any hesitation, and then it's like, oh, so now you regret. I've built it up to this point where unless she popped out of a cake with sparklers attached to her nipples, I'm not going to believe her that she's excited.
Yeah.
Like maybe she wasn't excited earlier, or maybe she was legitimately going, I just, have to finish laundry. And then we can, but to a person with trauma, my brain just went, she hates you. She thinks you're fat and ugly. She thinks you got a small penis. You're disgusting. And build that for 6 hours. So that by the time it's actually time to a reasonable person to have a reasonable sexual intercourse with their perfectly loving and, honest adult partner, I can't.
Right.
So when people, and I don't want her to think it's a her thing because it's not. I've heard that from other people that, when you have friends that go through shit similar, you have talks.
Oh, you mean when you have nurse friends, you mean?
Nurse friends, police friends. I was a police officer. I've seen, when you have those people in your life and you have those conversations, you talk, and I know I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone.
But at the same time, when you hear somebody else go, well, yeah, of course I still did it. Then you start thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Well, wait a second, I can't.
Here's something to think about. Let's put it out there. When you're playing video games, and I
play a lot of video games. Yeah.
Yes, I know. I think I know every man on the planet loves video games for the most part. I know.
Love Apex Legends. Shout out to everybody out there that plays Apex.
Listen, my husband was telling me last night he and his son were playing a new game, and I don't know what it is. Don't ask me. He's like, I know you'd love this one, honey. It's got puzzles and things you could like. I hate it because my kid's too young to be able to do all of it, and I want you to play it. And I'm just like, not falling into that trap, big pops. Not happening. Anyway, think about it in that way. Like, when you have a really good campaign, when you're doing one of these games, like, did you hear what I just did?
Yeah, you said campaign.
That was the lingo.
Yeah.
I've been listening.
For
Anyway.
role play games. Yeah, that's campaign. Yeah, good.
So like whatever those gunny games are, you guys all play. Anyway, so when you have like you win the winner chicken dinner, you've won. You're flying in the helicopter at the end, and everybody's
You're mixing a lot of video games together right now, but that's okay. Go on.
My husband used to send me videos of that. I don't know, the helicopter ride afterwards because you won, whatever. When you've had a really good game and you're with your buddies, and that's all good stuff, and you've leveled up and you feel like on top of the world. What does it feel like whenever you get killed and you're respawning every 5 seconds because some dude's got your number and he's just shooting you, and you just feel like garbage because you just want to murder this person, whoever he is, no matter like if it's a 7-year-old kid that's murdering you in this game.
And there's a lot of those.
Yes, I know. Listen, I listen to this screaming, yelling garbage all the time. But anyway, what I'm getting at and what I try to do, this is a perspective question. That leveling up makes your brain feel amazing, right? And if you could do that every game, you totally would. Having sex with your partner is really, really good when you can get it to happen. When you're having difficulty, you're running against the 7-year-old that's shooting you in the back every day and then walking around teabagging you afterwards. I've seen this happen too. Sorry. This is all I know about video games. This is it. This is behind the scenes.
It's good that you glimpsed the important parts, obviously.
Right. I get it, right?
And teabagging and 7-year-olds beating me. Yeah.
This is all I know. So why does that feel so good when you're winning? Because that dopamine, the dopamine hit, all of that is going. So what's happening whenever you're getting shut down by your significant other? What's happening is those dopamine levels are dropping. You're falling into a pattern that you have learned probably since you were a child, where your mom was mad at you or your dad was mad at you. And again, this doesn't have to fall into sexual traumas. I know I talk a lot about sexual abuse as children and traumatic things that happen to you as a child, regardless of whether I think it's a trauma or you think it's a trauma. It's your perspective. If somebody called you fat from the time you were born, if somebody called you ugly, if somebody called you short, if somebody said your breath smells bad or your feet are too big or whatever, you don't have to be actually physically touched or traumatized to be traumatized. And I just had this discussion with some wonderful people and met a guy who used big T traumas or little T traumas. The big T traumas are those ones that are really, really stick with us, like the sexual abuse, like the physical abuse, like things that can be measured by severity, let's say. You can't measure the severity of how bad you felt every day coming home when your mom told you, do you actually need that extra piece of cake? Do you ever clean anything? Do you ever take a shower because you're disgusting? Like those are the kinds of things that traumatize kids. And I've done it to my kids. I totally have.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just like, wow. But see, the crappy part for me is I may have inadvertently traumatized Tommy, my kid. I'd be like, man, you were really stinky today. Just kidding. He didn't really stink. But now I'm going in my head, well, Christ, did I just create a mental health lapse?
I've read those articles in the books where they tell you need to ask your child permission before you change their diaper.
Nah.
Okay. Whatever.
You shit your pants. Yeah, I'm fixing it.
It has its place. But we can't walk around every moment of our lives thinking, oh my God, I've traumatized this person. I've really traumatized them.
Maybe that's my problem.
I think that might be a part of it, Tom, because a lot of what we do in the day, we're all trying to be decent human beings. It's really hard to be a decent human being sometimes when all you want to do is tell the truth. But whose truth is less traumatic, right? Yeah. My truth is pretty traumatic. That doesn't make me not love people. I do. I just had this conversation because I'm on my last kid. She's about out. Like she'll be 18 next year. It's all good. But my older children believe in their hearts that I'm just like, why are you letting her do all these things? You never let us do that. Yeah, well, you guys are all real winners. I was really strict with you. What do you want me to do? It's the luck of the draw. This roulette wheel's got to stop sometime. Yeah. And, like I'm switching it up. I don't know how to be the best parent. I don't know how to not traumatize my kids by using the speech that I was taught growing up. But every day I'm trying to learn something new and trying to make sure that other people around me know that I love them and that they're safe. And I think that that's the only thing that I can do.
But when you're the person who it is so easy to not feel that way. Okay. So let's go ahead and bring this all back together again.
Yeah, bring it around.
Well, let's be frank. I have not had a great sexual history with my current wife. Just have not. I love her to death, but we have really significantly, I feel, again, this may be a perspective issue, but I feel we have really struggled all our relationship, which is not normal. Like no relationship starts off that way. Most of them start off that great honeymoon phase where you're rabbits and then you kind of die down over time. No, never had a rabbit phase. Like it just, so anyways, the point of this is mental health. I already had my scars and then not having, I love her to death, but having this unhealthy sexual relationship has not, been well for me. Here's where things change is we just talked about my sudden, very traumatic eye injury. Things rapidly changed. Rapidly. Like I would tell you, if you told me July 3rd, what was about to happen over the next several weeks of my life, I would tell you that's not physically possible. Like that's just, there's no way things. So I guess my thing is I've seen that my partner can at least act interested and be interested and want to be interested. What happens when it goes back? Because it's already going back to a person that I literally just told you 30 minutes ago that if you just tell me, let's do it later, I will take that as a sign I am a disgusting human being. Now that I went from openly having amazing sex all the time to right back to nothing. How am I going to prepare myself mentally? Because it's already happening. It's like I know what's about to happen. So how do I deal with that?
And have you had the discussion about it? Have you said, "Hey, listen, it sounds like,"
but it's not.
It sounds like last week.
It's not going to change anything.
Maybe
I've had that discussion a lot of times over 12 years, and it's never changed it before.
So what happens when you change your perspective?
Well, I guess that's my thing. So that's the answer. Is I have to change me.
It's not you changing you. It's changing your outlook, your view.
But that is me.
No, you're still you in there. You're still you. You're not giving up. What are you giving up by saying, okay, so this is my life. This is my hole. This is where I'm going to sit in my hole.
I don't know.
You feel like you're sitting in a hole?
Yeah.
First off.
I read it in a book one time. And so for some reason, I always think about it this way. I read the porthole effect. Mm-hmm. Like you're on a ship or something, and the only thing you can see out, like you have your room and you can move freely about your room, but your only vision to the outside world is this one little circle.
Yep.
And there's a lot of times that's how I feel. Like I am trapped inside my own brain.
I think that might be a problem. But
well, that's a problem. Yeah. My question is how do I fix it?
You have two options: get out or get over. And I never suggest people get out. But I definitely suggest they get over. Now, that's the thing. Are you a javelin or like a pole vaulter? Or are you?
Yeah, let's hear the rest of this. Come on, I'm gonna say no. I think I'm more of a pommel horse. Okay,
slow ladder climber.
Oh, that's the okay.
So you like?
I thought you were talking about the equipment you were using. I'm like, no, I'm more of a pommel horse, not a pole.
You're so trashy.
I know. Thank you. See, now you get it.
Yeah, I totally get
it.
Yeah, I get it. Anyway, so in the terms of abuse, so we talk about all kinds of different abuses, sexual abuse, physical, violent abuse that way. Just all of these different types of abuses, verbal abuse, what have you. The one thing that all of them have in common is that the person experiencing the trauma may feel the most alone But in all honesty, the other person who is perpetrating the trauma may also be as broken in their way as you feel you are in your way.
Well,
so that's a consideration as well. And I'm not saying, listen, I am not one to ever shame a victim of anything. And I know it's sad that I have to say this, but for those people who are listening, I think it's important to look at both sides. And one of the reasons why I teach sexual education like I do is because I think there are a lot of people out there that are operating on a system that does not work. That they like how many times have you updated your Windows? Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
You got to update your shit. And if you can't get your shit updated, things get out of control. It would be just as if you were trying to practice medicine with the education that stopped at 1960. You can't. It doesn't work that way. I mean, there might be a lot better things that were happening back then, but there were a lot worse things happening back then, you know? So these are the ways that you have to look at it. Like, if you cannot come together with a partner and have a discussion about how you feel about what's going on in your life and how the things that you are perceiving, and I use that you are perceiving so that it doesn't shoot out your mouth like, you're doing this to me, you have done this to me, this is what I noticed that you do to me.
That's bad. Don't do that. Okay.
Well, usually it doesn't lend to communication. It just doesn't. Because when you start out with you,
yeah,
you're not really right. It totally does.
But we talked earlier about specifics, and I know your audience does not know me, but you know me. I have never been one where if you say, Tom, you're wrong, and you say why I'm wrong, I'm like, you know what, I fucked up. Like, yep, you got me. That's what I did, and you're correct. I will fix it. When you are talking to the other person, and I'm trying to be clear, this is what I did, but this is also what you did. How do I say that without them getting defensive then when I'm trying to be clear? Like, I know the things I mess up, but here are the things that you are doing that is affecting me. If I can't say you, because I don't want to put them on the defensive, then how am I supposed to be clear? Because no offense, if there's only two of us, and there is only two of us, you know, in this equation at this time. Hey, if she wants to get a friend in here, I'm sure she has some very cute ladies. But Tom, since that's not going to happen,
Tom.
Well, I'm just saying it's not going to happen. So, but it's me and her, right?
Right.
If we're not having sex, it is not me. So I guess the point is, how am I going to have that conversation where I'm like, well, I begged you and you refused. How do I say that without her getting defensive? Because, I mean, I truly want the communication to happen, but let's be fucking frank. I'm clearly not the problem. So in this case, in this scenario, there are times where I am. I'm just saying in a scenario where you say we're going to have sex later, I'm ready to go. You act like you want it, but then it never happens. Well, clearly I'm not the problem. So how do I fix the problem?
Here's my thoughts.
Here's
my thoughts. If you've gotten to that point where you cannot make sure that you are the problem or she is the problem, that you're both the problem, then I would necessarily say, hey, these are the things that I'm noticing. This is how I'm feeling. Is this how you're feeling? Please let me know. These are those things.
Oh, so asking her if the thing I'm assuming is what's true.
Correct.
Okay. So
I mean, like,
I assume you think I am a slimy piece of garbage. That's how I feel. You are treating me. I still feel like that's going to come out bad.
Well, just don't say it like you feel like you're a slimy piece of garbage. Just say,
you make me feel unattractive.
You make me not feel like you want me. If you don't want me, please let me know.
Yeah. And that's when I had the conversation of, then let's hire somebody third party to take up that duty, because I like talking to you. Like, we like watching Ted Lasso together, but apparently you don't want to bang. So why don't we just get a person in here who you're okay with fucking me, and then I'll fuck them, and then we can get back to watching Ted Lasso. Somehow that's not acceptable.
And then I'm going to see your name on like one of those documentary series.
No, I did say that. I've had that.
Where the wife buries the husband in the backyard.
Well, you know what, though? Again, to be fair to me, this conversation was a long time coming. And I honestly, at that point, thought it was fair. I don't want to divorce you. I want to continue to have the emotional relationship we have, because I think we have a good one. You are completely failing on the physical side.
Did you say you're completely failing on the physical side?
I don't know that I said it exactly like that, but I was pretty clear.
Okay.
Well, hold on. Again, this
I'm
was
not mad at
a
you.
decade. This was a decade. It wasn't like I just one day said, hey, bitch, I want to do it more. Like, then I would say I don't deserve it. Like, that would be clear. But it was like, hey, fast forward 10 years, me going, okay, at some point, we've got to make progress. I've tried.
Gotcha.
I've tried the little details. I've tried new communication techniques. I've tried asking what they like and then doing expressly what they like. Nothing will frustrate you more than if somebody was like, touch my right ear and tell me you love me, and I will just melt and do it with you. So then you touch their right ear and you're like, I love you. They're like, great, I'm doing dishes. Go the fuck away from me. And you're like, oh, so everything you said to do, I did, and now it got me nowhere.
Gotcha.
And I know that's an oversimplification, but I'm saying
I understand.
that's specific. So after 10 years of that every day, and I do mean every day,
got you.
At what point was it okay to have that conversation then?
So what would happen if you switched things up and you made it so that only you were responsible for your own sexual happiness?
I'm pretty sure that's how it's been.
And is that terrible? Are you a good lover to yourself, Tom?
Oh, you know it's better than me to myself, but that's not the point. No, I want another person there.
Well,
and
okay.
again, okay, hold on. I also had that conversation where I said, if this was a perspective of ejaculation, I can fix that. I want the person I love and care about to be involved.
Gotcha.
And so I made that clear too. I was like, this isn't just, I just want to get drunk and do it because you want to do it more when you're drunk. Like, that's not, this is, I actually feel an emotional attachment to you, and it's strengthened, and I feel better as a person and us as a couple when we have sex. And then 6 weeks later, we still hadn't had sex. So I don't know what other things there were to do. Like, I mean, at some point, I think a frank conversation was the last thing left.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not what people think I should say, but I ran out of things to say. I tried all the other stuff.
Well, I think that definitely you have had your traumatic experiences in the past, definitely. And I think that it's warranted to, after all these years, definitely have that conversation. I'm not a huge, I know it's really easy for me to say I'm not a huge proponent of divorce, only because I've been divorced twice, been married 3 times, but I really like this husband that I have right now. He's pretty
Seems
awesome.
like a nice guy.
I'm going to keep him around for as long as I can. He's,
I like how you just give him that subtle notice though, but at any moment, bro, I could find another PlayStation guy. I'm just saying, just keep that shit in mind.
No, he's pretty good to me. He takes pretty good care of me. I'm not going to lie. So it's really nice to have that. But also, we both have very open, honest, clear lines of communication. And there are stuff one little trivial thing that means nothing to anybody but me. When he goes out, let's say to go grab something at Home Depot, which has been like every day for the last month that we've been
you just moved. Yeah, there's a lot of home.
Yeah, so we're home Depot-ing, and he'll stop and grab some food, and he'll just get something for himself. There is not one thing that makes me any more angry than for him not to think about me in the moment that he's buying food for himself.
Have
Why?
you said that to him?
Yeah, he knows it. He doesn't even he knows. He doesn't even tell me anymore. It's just me finding that, Chick-fil-A straw wrapper.
Yeah.
Bitch. That's right. Anyway, it's just silly stuff. And it doesn't really mean anything to anybody except for me. And why? Because I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and going out to eat, getting food out in some way, shape, or form to me is
it's a treat.
It's like, oh, you did something really fun without me? Why? And it's just food. And I've really tried in my mind to figure out, why does that stress me so much? Like, it pisses me off. It makes me so mad. And it's dumb. But that's where my food addiction comes into too, right?
Yeah.
That's how I want to feel good. And if I'm watching you sitting there slurping around on that giant 64-ounce Dr. Pepper that I know tastes wonderful. It just does.
Well, Dr. Pepper's communist. So
stop it. It's only communist whenever they don't mix it right. But anyway, those are the kinds of things, like, there's no rationale, no rational reason why I should be pissed that he stopped to satiate his food need,
Okay. But, and again, I like Dave. So but using this as an example, though.
You can go ahead and talk bad about him. He doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, no, but this is truly not bad, but I think this is a good example. Is okay. So this is a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing that happens daily, or not daily, but frequently. And it's a very simple thing that happens frequently that could be easily rectified, but he doesn't.
Right.
So you are handling it much different than me, because to me, that would be a personal, like my mental health now. And I know it has to be traumatic, and here's why. And this, we were talking before the show, so people that didn't hear pre-recording don't know this. When we were talking, I was like, 24-year-old me did not have this problem. 24-year-old me would be like, you didn't give me Chick-fil-A? Well, you're a fucking cocksucker. And then I'd walk off, right? I'd be mad, I'd say whatever explanation.
Jesus wanted me to get those fries.
Yeah, Jesus wanted me to have those fries, you motherfucker. Where's my fries? But for some reason, after the event that happened, and I subsequently now know I developed, PTSD. And honestly, I'm sure there is some childhood trauma that I don't know, or I haven't unlocked or whatever that mixes into this. Okay. Because I think there is a food component for me on something. So I was like, oh God, maybe there is some more childhood stuff I don't think about. But going back specifically to the topic for today, for the sexual stuff though, is 24-year-old me pre-incident would not care. I think I always had some image issues because I've always been a bigger guy. So a female finding me attractive has been of the utmost importance. So I think I would have always been very touchy, but I wouldn't have cared, because I'd be like, okay, well, if you don't like me, then Stacy does. If Stacy doesn't like me, then Michelle does. Like somebody's going to like me. And I think that was healthy to an extent, because it was like, okay, well, I'm a normal person and somebody will find worth in me. But now, if the person I'm with and I've said I love you to does anything that does not reciprocate it, suddenly it is a DEFCON 2 level, sirens are blowing in my head like, oh, she's going to divorce you. She's got another sexual partner. Like something has now changed in my life. And again, that's not fair to her to an extent. But at the same time, like we were just talking about the Chick-fil-A wrapper, some of the communication things I've asked for weren't even sex. It was, if we're not going to have sex, and I'm okay with that. I am a grown adult. I understand we're not going to do it 6 times a day. I think I've already said that once. I'm saying it again because I've had this conversation with her more than once. I'm just saying, I've said that. I said, what I cannot deal with for my mental health is for you to insinuate that these things are going to happen in this specific order, and then they don't happen, because then that creates this traumatic spiral of something's wrong. I am always going to be hyper vigilant. And so now if you purposely, and I honestly could understand if she came home and said, Tommy fell down, we got to go to the ER. Well, clearly sex is no longer, common sense does play a part. If something happens, I'm willing to change the rules. What I'm saying is normal day, normal time, normal everything. And then you still go, oh, let's do it tomorrow. You have now created a 24-hour terminal self-image spiral that's going to end up with me going, I might as well cut my dick off and jump off a building because I'm never going to have sex again. I know that's obviously hyperinflated. I'm just saying, that's the thing that happens.
But what you're doing in your own mind is making her responsible for your happiness.
Yeah, okay. You are 100% correct. You are 100% correct. What I am saying is I have made my partner aware of these things, though. And when we've had open communication and she says, I don't want to do it tonight, I've had zero problems.
Yeah.
It's this, I am putting my happiness in her hands. But at some point, do they have a responsibility to at least say, I cannot fulfill your need? If she can't tell me that every day, which I couldn't understand why you wouldn't be able to. But if let's say Dave says, we don't have enough money. I guess in my head, that's something I would understand. I wanted Chick-fil-A, but we didn't have money. You could still eat. You were sitting there. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay. But if he said, I don't want to get you Chick-fil-A because I just don't fucking care if you have Chick-fil-A. That's what I hear.
That's what I hear too. That's exactly what he says.
Okay.
But stop being a crazy person.
Yes. Okay.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Okay. But this time it's sex. And to her, it's just, she's a young, pretty chick. Her whole life, men have thrown themselves at her. I'm sure of it. And so for her, sex is literally Chick-fil-A. She could give a shit less if she got the nugget sauce. She's had the nugget sauce 12 million times, and every person wants her to have nugget sauce. Me, on the other hand, I am running like it's my last meal to get that chicken nugget sauce. Do you see the difference
I
here?
do.
Okay.
But then I'm also wondering, do you absolutely know that she's been having sauce thrown at her? You know, maybe
she's a
that's
girl.
just
She's a
doesn't
girl.
matter.
She's a girl.
That doesn't
No,
matter.
okay. No, it does matter. It matters
You
from a
say
guy
that,
and girl
you-
and society perspective.
You say that all the time.
Yes, because it's true all the time.
It's not true.
It is 100% true.
I don't know if you've met younger guys these days. I'm serious. Have you not listened to some of my older shows? Or do you remember, like, I had a guy on that talked about the first time he had sex, he was so grossed out, he didn't want to do it ever again because it was so gross and slimy. There are a lot of people out there like that.
Okay, but that's no, and I respect, because I remember first time I had sex, and that was a traumatic experience.
It's so traumatic.
Yeah, it was, because they literally ripped the condom open and she put it on the table and she said, "You either put it on you or I'm putting it on you, but this is happening." And I didn't realize I was 13. I didn't know what was going on. Like, I knew what I wanted. Like, instinctually, your urge is, I know I want to do something with this and her. Like, I knew now the sequence of events that then proceeded. I had no idea. And so I can understand that initial first thought.
Your first experience was traumatic.
Yeah, my first experience was actually against my will. That's legit. That's legit. Because I told this girl I was in love with her. She was my very first, and I wanted to do whatever would make her happy. And she said, "Well, sex will make her happy." And I said, "I'm not ready for sex." And then she literally left the room and came back with a condom and slammed it. Like, when I say she said it in real life, what she did, I remember it was a white Trojan with like blue striping, and she ripped it open and like a domino, bam, slammed it on the table. And she was like, "You're going to put it on, or I'm going to put it on you. But this is happening."
Wow.
Yeah, and I am so glad she did, though. For me, like, it was that, so happy. But
because then you knew you had your signal.
But you know what? But the fat boy in me needed that. I needed someone that was going to say, "I find you attractive." See, this is how I take it, though. This is a perspective issue, right? Because there are a lot of people, and I would not say that they are wrong. That is technically a sexual battery. Well, what preceded that pretty much a sexual battery, because she made me do it. But the point is, I needed someone that was so into me that they finally said, "I'm done with the bullshit. We've made out. We've done all the little stuff, you know." And I am not saying it was correct for two teenagers, okay? But I'm saying from a mental health perspective, it was by far the best thing that ever happened to me. Because somebody said, "I don't think you're fat, and I'm fucking tired of hearing you say it. I'm going to prove to you you're not." And so I think in some ways that has shaded probably some of my sexual health, where I need women. I don't need you to do everything, but I need you to at least be upfront. I need to know where I stand.
You need a dominatrix. You need an aggressor.
I don't know about dominate. Well,
I've never seen you laugh like that ever in all the time that I've known you.
I don't think I need one, because in my head I always think of like someone hitting me and telling me, "Put the cigarette out of your tongue," and I'm like, "No, I don't need that. I don't want that."
You need
I want dominatrix. No, I want someone that they're so sure that they want me that they can convey that to me. And that's not what up until a couple weeks ago was present. And now it's gone away already. Like, I can see it right now. So I guess for me, as a sexual person who is mentally handicapped with that trauma, I don't know how I'm going to go back, because I saw how I could feel normal.
Has that been with every relationship you've ever had?
No. Okay. No, other people actually found me attractive and made sure they said so. Well, I've never had a partner. No, I've seriously, I actually, for like I said, the first decade, I thought I was the problem, because I was like, clearly I've never had a problem having sex before. Right. I shouldn't say having sex. Having intercourse was not my problem. Getting her to want to have it with me. This is a true story for people that think I'm joking, because I do have friends, and not all of us have a lot of sex. None of us have as much sex as we want. So I'm willing to accept
not
that.
This friend.
Shut up. So, but you know, I remember one time my wife and I were having a conversation, and she looked at me and she said, "How long has it been since we've had sex?" And I said, 4 months. And she said, "Okay," and then just kept watching TV. Like it was a factual thing on a crossword puzzle. Yeah. Not like, "Oh my God, we need to fix this." Or I think what I specifically said is I stopped counting at 4 months.
Well, let me just, on that note, let me talk to you about something. So Dave and I have not always had the most spectacular, wonderful relationship that we have these days. Years ago, we were having some trouble, and I'm the aggressor always, like I say always. I'm usually the aggressor.
Yes,
I don't have to be, but usually I'm the aggressor. Anyway, back then we were both working night shift in the ER. We were exhausted. We were drinking. We were not eating good. We were being, ER nurses like you are.
Night shift ER nurses.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I live on coffee and Slim Jims. Yeah, this is
That's
amazing.
right.
Yeah.
It would be, again, like we had the same sleep schedule. We had, we were on 2 days off, 3 days on, how that goes. Anyway, it happened that I'm like, dude, it's been forever. What's the story? He's like, oh no, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm sorry. What? Husband who's 10 years younger than me, you're tired?
Tired? What is this tired you speak of?
What is this tired you speak of? And it became a thing. And it kept going like that for months. Now, I've been married 2 other times, right?
Yeah. Mm.
I have a very fragile ego. I know I sound like I'm such a badass all the time, but no, I'm like every other girl. I want to be told I'm pretty. I don't want to be, and I've always been the bigger girl too. I've never been the tiny petite girl. I am a very formidable woman.
Yeah, she is. She very, very much is.
Not to say that I would pick people up. I think I actually said that today when I was in the cafeteria. I was like, if somebody doesn't hurry up, I'm going to pick this person up and throw them. But anyway, I don't think I'm unattractive. I don't think that I'm the worst wife ever. I think I'm pretty sexually adventurous. I think that I offer a lot. I bring a lot to the table. I'm not an idiot. I can have a nice conversation.
So you're saying if you and Dave break up,
yeah,
you're gonna give me a call. Okay.
You're so sweet. You can be my side chick. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. I'm all excited now.
Oh, but anyway, so he mentioned to me one day, he's like, why do you fucking keep reminding me that it's been months since we've had sex? I'm like, because I'm over here wondering, am I not attractive to you anymore? Like, what's the deal? He's like, no, I'm tired. Like, legit. I'm stressed out about life and work. He gained a lot of weight there for a little bit because we were drinking and eating garbage food all the time. Yeah. And I think at that point in his life, he's also a male nurse working with other chicks, and they're all, how it works.
Well, how it works. I do, but again, so this is a perspective issue, and I just want to stop for a minute just to interject in this because, again, I am a guy nurse.
Yeah.
And I am sure there are relationships that develop out of working closely. I mean, it's going to happen. You put men and women in a tight enough space for long enough, eventually something's going to happen between somebody.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, though. Having worked with a bunch of women, I personally am able to separate the whole hormone issue from the guy issue. And I know guys so I said it once earlier, but if you know, I was a police officer before I did this. I've worked in other jobs before I did nursing. I'm still friends with those people, and they're like, you work with all chicks all day, because in their head it's like it's a screw fest. It's a Grey's Anatomy every day. I'm like, look, man, I cannot tell you how much I don't have those feelings. Like, first of all, no offense, after wiping up an old lady's ass that just had diarrhea everywhere, you don't want to get into a closet and have sex. Like, that's one thing. Okay. Or two, post code. Oh, you just coded 2 18-year-olds that rolled over in a vehicle? Yeah. No, you don't want to have sex. But third, most of the time, as the guy, as 7% of the healthcare working force of nurses, we are the extreme minority. By and large, my experience has been we are the sounding boards for what's wrong with our husbands. Yeah. So when people are like, well, you're probably having sex with 3 girls a day because you work with all women. I'm like, they all tell me how terrible men are all day long. All day long. That's all I hear is how I'm a worthless piece of crap because I'm a guy, because our husband's a worthless piece of crap. Trust me, there ain't a lot of sexy talk going on when you're with 15 women and 12 of them are going, I hate men. Nah. You're not going to have the conversations you think. Now, you could have some pretty wild and raunchy conversations. I've had them. But it's not just because we're talking about vaginas does not mean we're talking about cool things with vaginas. Okay. Right. Let's just mostly
what's stuck in it or
them,
coming out of it.
what terrible concoction of things coming out of them because they're on their period. I'm like, I didn't need to hear any of that. So thank you. The amount of expressions for, I really should know the technical words for some of the things I'm going to describe, but basically the first release of blood after starting a period, I can't tell you how many girls are like, I just need to fan in whatever words or actions you want. This is my favorite. Like, that's my favorite one girls do. They're like, I just need to, and they do this motion with their hand and they do that noise. I'm like, oh, thank you. I know what you're aware of because I've been around girls for over a decade in healthcare, but I'm telling you, as a guy, that does not make me go, I want to see it.
Yeah.
You know, so when people talk about these relationships in healthcare and they think we're having all this wild sex, as a girl saying that to a guy that does this, and I have a wife that works in healthcare, you know, I don't know what you guys think we think, but I'll tell you right now, it is not it is not the same thing. Yeah, it's not the same thing.
True.
So sorry to interrupt. I just I knew where you were going.
Not interrupting. You're fine.
I knew where you were going because it was, well, he's a guy and he works with all these pretty girls, because we do work with some pretty girls. I work with some pretty
my husband worked with a gross, disgusting, ugly girl. Yeah. She wasn't even pretty.
Okay. But the point is, you know, I think there's this misconception sometimes that
there totally is.
That we're having all these wild fantasies. I'm like, look, no offense, ladies. I've done enough pap smears. There's no, there's not a lot of sexual mystery going on in my head anymore that I think that's going to be great. So
no. And you know, it's really, it's nice to have a healthcare provider person in your home whenever you come home from crappy nights, like traumatic nights. But rolling back to, sometimes we switch up roles as the feminine masculine, right? Like I was saying to my husband, it's been a couple weeks, bud. What's up? You know, like, is it me? And I think I was getting in that mind space that you're in currently. Like, what am I
what's
doing?
Wrong with me? Yeah.
Right.
So what did I do wrong?
What exactly was it that I did wrong? But it's not anything that you've done wrong. It has absolutely zero to do with you and 100% to do with her. She has to figure that out. And you can't make her figure that out.
And I wouldn't want to make her.
But you also don't have to. You also don't have to wait around if it's been 10 years.
Well, okay, but let's say we want to try and help what can I do to make it more successful? I know we're getting close to the end. So give me something I can do to try and be successful while waiting to see if you and Dave work out.
You're so funny. You can move out for a month.
Ooh, okay. Is there less dangerous things? Because
what's dangerous about it?
My traumatic brain goes, she's going to enjoy that month without me and get rid of me. Which, in the end, that's not a bad thing. If that's really what needs to happen, but I don't want that to happen. So I like my dog and my wife and my kid.
But that's the thing. Is this more of a, I'm staying in this situation for the financial and emotional small gains, or am I ready to really make a decision?
I don't know.
Don't you have a friend who lives in Kansas you can go stay with for a week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I certainly could.
Just be like, hey.
That's a long drive for me to stay there for a week.
I mean, and there's airplanes.
I hate airplanes. I hate flying.
Oh, my God.
And then on top of it, I don't know if you remember that whole traumatic eye injury. Well, you spend a lot of time off work, so PTO might be an issue, but...
I mean, if you're, about to get divorced, you might as well not have a job.
Yeah. Why do I need a job?
I'm not please don't think that I'm suggesting you get divorced.
No, I know.
But Tom and I have been having this conversation for a long time.
I say, unfortunately for the people listening, first of all, hopefully they like it and we can have this conversation on the air again. But second of all, we've known each other for years. So this is not like, you are basically hearing the fast forwarded, unedited version of a phone conversation is what you're hearing right now. But hopefully, I'm sure what she said is Tom's really fucked up and somebody can learn something from how fucked up he is. And so I'm just going to blast it out on the air instead of tapping his phone.
That's not true. No, what it is that you have to give a little bit of credit to yourself for trying to be as communicative as you say you are, but also you have to give her the space to figure out how to answer you and take care of her needs and your needs, because that's kind of what we all have to do. And that's what you're doing.
Well, and you said something that I think is also extremely something I try and be fair about, and that is I always try and remember I could be wrong.
I would say that's probably happening a lot.
Well, I'm me, so I don't think that. But that's not the point. Is whether I openly say it or I don't. Literally everything I do like a little mental health check with my decisions to go, what if I'm wrong? And I do that with my wife as well. It's like, whoa, I know. Well, there's a difference. If it literally just came out of her mouth, nah, I'm calling this one. But there are times where, like I said, I interpret, and I know I'm interpreting, and I'm like, whoa. Okay, hold on. What if? And I do try and provide that benefit of the doubt. Okay. What I'm saying though is at the end of the day, my brain cannot stop the mental trauma. It cannot stop the you're ugly. It can't stop the you don't deserve. It's not going to stop they don't want you or you're broken. That's another one. I don't even know how to explain to people that, because there's no mental or physical scar on me. Well, other than my eyeball now, but there's no physical scar on me, but I still feel like trash.
Yeah.
And so that's the part I don't know. And I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Just like, and again, it wouldn't matter. I don't think it would matter anymore. I think I would give a better shot. Like, let's say me and my wife got divorced. I started dating someone new. I think the first time she did it, I might be able to go, it's a new person. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But literally the second time, my brain would go click. There it is. There it is. And I don't know. I know that's a me problem. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, my me problem is going to affect me physically to the point where sexual intimacy is going to become more difficult. And so I guess that's why I wanted people to hear this and go, it's not a Tom and his wife problem. It's a Tom and his mental health and sexual history problem, because it wouldn't matter if it was her or not.
Right.
If I got married 2 more times, trying to break the polyandry record there, yeah, right. I would still say though, every person after this, I'm going to have to learn how to communicate with them and deal with it. And I don't know how.
And that is exactly what you need to do right now. Because what if your wife is sitting around saying the same thing to her friends that you say to me? Like,
she's not.
What do you don't know?
I don't know, but
you don't know. Maybe she is just as self-conscious as you are.
I don't know how anybody could be self-conscious with another person walking around begging them all the time. Like, oh, you're the most amazing person ever.
Sometimes it's just not what's needed, right? Like you need what you need and she needs what she needs.
You know what, though? You're 100%. I did not think about that until I literally just said it out. Is maybe that's not what is her trigger.
So I've had this instance of people saying, oh, you're so popular. You've had so many friends. You're so big on podcasting. Like, I'm not big on podcasting. I just don't want to tell people. But anyway, like people think that because you drive a car, you have a job, you do a certain thing, this or that, that's things are easy for you. It's not,
No, I feel like I'm like mentally strangled every day.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't necessarily mentally get strangled every day, but I definitely feel like I carry the weight of the world sometimes. And why? Because I don't have to. Why do I feel that way? Because there's something in there that made me think that I needed to do that. And I haven't quite got over that yet. Eventually one day, maybe I will. Maybe I will be. And I think about this when I'm taking care of my mom, when I come home from work and she looks at me like, oh, I haven't seen you forever. But she just saw me this morning, whatever. Yeah. She says things to me that make me think, man, I'm so glad I have the gene for Alzheimer's. Because like that's what I get to do later. Like I get to wake up every morning and not know what day it is and not know who loved me or who didn't. That shit sucks.
I got multiple people in my family, and it's just like, it's
right.
Now I'm getting into my 40s. Every time I can't find my keys, even though I know it's 100% normal and harmless, you're getting to that age where you're like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
Yeah, I get it. My husband's almost 42, and he
Almost 40. What a pup.
He's 39. He'll be 40 soon.
What a pup.
Anyway, he actually said something to me the other day, which made me die because, I just turned 49. I don't care. I'm on a downward spiral. It doesn't matter after
it's
this.
all downhill from here.
We were talking about a tape measure, and I'm like, he said, "What'd you do with my tape measure?" Dude, I don't have your tape measure. Do I look like a carpenter? I don't think so.
Do I have a tool belt?
Right? Do I look carpentry enough for you? Anyway, he's like, "Well, I didn't have it." I said, "Yeah, I gave it to you. I actually handed it to him from one table, and he laid it down on our bar in the kitchen." And he came back in. He's like, "Well, son of a bitch. I don't remember that at all." And I'm like, "That's how it starts, buddy.
Yeah,
this is it. This is the beginning of
That's
the
first punch." Yeah. Oh, next thing you know, you're gonna be walking around going, "Why am I watching Golden Girls?" You don't know what the hell's going on.
He loves the Golden Girls. Anyway, so what I wanted to throw out to everybody is please know that there are a lot of anti-sexual violence organizations out there. One of my favorite is RAINN, RAINN. You can Google them and check out what they have to say. If you know somebody or if you are a victim of sexual abuse or have been abused in the past and you need help, please search it out. There are a lot of great people out there who can help you figure out what works best for you. And again, there are so many therapies and so many different types of treatments out there, guys. Just find something that resonates with you that will allow you to speak your own truth. Because again, all we have in our entire lives is ourselves. The only person that you can always depend on is you. And when you feel like you can't depend on yourself is when you need to really to get some help with that. But Tom, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on my show. And I've only been calling you like for months and months to get you to do this. So thanks for finally showing up. No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, where can the people find you and who are you? What are you? What do you do?
I will tell them, but again, I don't handle this crap. This is the part that Ben handles. So just Google Just Some Podcast. Media actually is our website. That'll take you to where all of our podcasts are. Ben and I actually do a couple different. We do Just Some Podcast, which is an educational series for, well, to be honest, it started off as a educational series for healthcare workers like nurse practitioners, PAs, young physicians, etc. But honestly, we have as many non-healthcare workers listening and sending us questions out. So it's just kind of a healthcare podcast. We also do one called We'll Continue to Monitor, which is our creepy medical mysteries, true crime, unsolved mysteries. But we look at it from a medical point of view, or like I said, I have the law enforcement, investigation. So when you see something like DB Cooper case, they may say, "Oh, he jumped out of the plane," but we explain why that's a problem. Because 30,000 feet without oxygen causes hypoxia. So we actually take the reasons why you may hear on a podcast or a TV show why this is bad, but we actually tell you why it's bad. Like, that's bad, like this is bad. Or, but it applies to other things. Like when we did one where people flew over the Bermuda Triangle. Well, what types of things can affect you in the Bermuda Triangle? Or not even the human physiology, just basic science. But we try and do some stuff like that. But then, of course, we do stuff with your podcast, Miss Pollyanna. We love you. And then we also have Mr. Nurse Papa. So we have a plethora of podcast. And if you ever want to find them out, we have all the social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook. I just don't know what all that stuff is. So just Google justsomepodcast.com and it'll take you to our homepage and kind of go from there.
Man, what a seller.
he's gonna be so proud of me.
Because
I'm like, Google it. I don't fucking know. Yeah.
Yes.
that's why Ben's like Mr. Polished social media guy, and they're like, Tom, how can they find you? I don't know. Google it. Fucking Jesus.
And if I don't don't like this show, don't say anything.
Yeah. If you don't like this show, don't listen to me. I don't care. That's what I say a lot. So.
Well, you have been listening to Buried Pleasures. I am the hostess, Pollyanna Amazing. You can find me at buriedpleasures.com, Buried Pleasures on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Buried Pleasures 1. Yeah.
Buried Pleasures 1.
Buried Pleasures 1. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, but Tom, thanks again for coming on here. And, this is just scratching the surface of one person's traumatic experience.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this is just scratching the surface of what's soon to be a mini series of Tom's fucked up mental health issues.
I mean,
So-
you might just do that. You never know.
Hey, obviously, I don't. We talked. You're gonna have to tell me sometime the numbers on when we talked about men are afraid of their penis size.
Oh my God.
Episode, so.
It's one of my most listened to. Okay.
Yeah, I bet so.
It's
But
on
yeah,
you.
anytime I'll talk about anything,
All
especially with you. So,
right.
anything.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. All right. Well, everybody have a great day. See you later. Bye.
Well, if you wanna get to heaven, you gotta raise a little hell. And I've been running from the law.
Just Some Podcast Media.